your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
I want to ask you, so growing up in New York, doing the Marines, going into the agency, and then, you did your training. What was it like for you on your very first on your very first, a recruitment attempt or assessment? Like, what were you feeling? Did you feel up to it? You're like, I got this, no problem? Were you nervous? What was that like for you?
It was nerves, but good nerves. It's like the nerves you have before you're about to do something, and then once you start doing it, the nerves all go away, and you're just there. So my first, if I remember correctly, my first actual operational act was a turnover. So I was inheriting an agent from the case officer I was succeeding. So I was replacing somebody who was handing over his assets to me. And it was a military officer, as I recall, and I'll keep it all general and stuff like that. But I was so excited. I couldn't wait. And a turnover, there's a process, and the process, and I talked maybe a little bit about it in the book. In fact, I know I do. It's a matter of transferring the relationship, transferring the trust and the rapport from old case officer to new. But it's also when you're going over obligations, so that the old case officer doesn't walk out of the room and the agent goes, "Well, you owe me $2,000," and you go, "Not according to the file." Well, you
Right.
do, or this is all I'll do for you. I'll only do this much or whatever. So it's an opportunity for you to review what's the agent been doing, why does the agent do it. So the case officer, old, is actually reviewing to the new case officer, and it's all theater, so that the agent hears it. This is what we expect of you, right? Hey, Ahmed's been doing this because his daughter got sick and they wouldn't hospitalize her at the Army military hospital, and he felt it was wrong, and da-da-da and whatever. And so I'm waiting for my piece. And then at that point, actually, we like it best when the old case officer leaves the room and allows the new case officer to establish themselves. The old case officer was a very good case officer and also a pretty aggressive chap. I didn't want to leave the room. So I guess at some point I just really inserted myself and I took charge of the meeting, because I'd be like holding it in and waiting, but I already had my game plan. And in espionage, you always have a game plan, but it's subject to change, right? Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until like get punched in the face, right? Same as spy and in war and in combat. But I wanted to go right for it. And to my colleague's credit, he backed down when I started doing my thing and did the meeting. The agent liked me and got intel, did the admin piece, all went well. Agent gets dropped off, he's gone. And the case officer goes, "Wow, I didn't really expect that, because I thought you'd kind of be more laid back." And I couldn't wait. So yeah, nerves up until the point I got to start, opening my mouth. But I'll tell you the truth, and I tell students this, and I'm talking spy students or younger officers when I talk to farm, I got that nervous excitement, the butterflies, every time I went out. And I mean, like, even on the last operational things I did as an old coot, I still felt that way. And I think it was because it was that important to me. And I always felt that charge from it.
And I, for one, enjoyed the war stories, as you put it in your book, talking about recruiting assets. And I'd like to ask you about a few of them. You're not. It's probably impossible for me to go in chronological order. I don't know if it's your writing style or rather the CIA just doesn't want any of us to know precisely when these events happened. The countries are also not named, and it all you had to make it generic so that these people could not be identified. Could you talk to us about the terrorist that you name quote unquote Yusef in the book that you flipped and kind of brought over to the other side?
Yeah, Yusuf, I was about to say, I loved Yusuf and he was a terrorist, so that's probably not the right thing to say. Yusuf was a really interesting guy. He was a really unique person, and he, fortunately for me, had terrible luck. And I basically took advantage of his bad luck for my good luck. So I say in the book very clearly, and I stand behind it, the CIA does not use coercion in recruiting people. And the reason we don't isn't because we just have a great moral compass, and clearly we've made some significant mistakes or lapses in morality and ethics, and we can talk about enhanced interrogation or whatever like that. But it's a matter of efficiency. Coercion doesn't work effectively. Some services use them steadily. The Russians do, China, Iran, North Korea, and a number of other services that I just won't get into. It's easier for me to get away with just naming those biggies. One, because it's easier. You get dirt on somebody, you compromise them, you're done. The Russians call it MICE, which is money, ideology, compromising material, and ego. So they love to get dirt on somebody because it takes away the work of spotting, assessing, developing, cultivating, recruiting, all that kind of stuff. You put pictures of them sleeping with somebody, or your drinking problem, or they're in debt, and they're yours. But they're not really.
Right.
They'll do the minimum they can, and they could turn on you at any time where they have the advantage. CIA has to stand behind its intelligence. We have to go to our consumers and go, we believe in this agent to different degrees. We have what's called source descriptions, which assess the agent's veracity, their access to the intelligence of which they're speaking, and their reliability. And it's a process that goes over time. How much we've tested them, how long they've reported, so we can say how much confidence we have in whatever report they produce. You can't do that with somebody you're blackmailing. Having said all that, which I stand behind is true, we might play a little rough around the edges just to get our foot in the door. And that's in the case of flipping a jailhouse recruit, which is how I wanted Yusuf to be. He wasn't at the time. So Yusuf showed up in my country that I was serving, and for Yusuf, it was kind of like the end of the world. He was on the run, but with his family, which was telling in and of itself. So he had been in places where we knew somebody with his kunya, his nickname. So Arabs often use what they call a kunya, which is a nickname for their first child. Abu David, Abu Sarah, depending if it's a boy or a girl, will be how they're known to their friends. His nickname was unique because the child's name was particularly unique, and his family size was unique, and where he came from. And where he came from, he had sort of paralleled the course of a terrorist facilitator who had been in places where there had been terrorist attacks, or where Al-Qaeda cells had been wrapped up before they could be, and during their interrogations would mention this facilitator by his kunya. So I was working with the local foreign partner, the local government service. At the time, I had a specialized team from them that was dedicated to my station that we could use for local operations. And they just routinely gave me the names of particularly folks that were, this was before 9/11, mind you, but this was after the East Africa bombings in 98. It was after the attack on the USS Cole in 2000. So we had a very heightened antenna, and we knew Al-Qaeda was up to something. So we get this name, we do routine traces, and our headquarters officers, our targeters, our analysts say, this could be this guy, based on them sort of putting the picture together. So we decided to mount the operation to find out if it was that guy. And I won't, belabor this really too long. We determined over time, by running a whole bunch of different things that I won't detail, that he most likely was this guy, but he was here. Why? And at the same time, remember, this is before 9/11. This is in that 2000-2001 period where the alarm bells were ringing, as the 9/11 Commission report, and CIA was producing finished products, not just the August PDB about bin Laden determined to strike the homeland, but a lot of other reporting saying they've got something. It's inevitable. It could be here. It could be elsewhere. It's coming. We don't know what it is. So there was a panic at headquarters that if this guy was here, based on all the activities he'd been involved, he was going to be part of a terrorist operation. And they just wanted to disrupt it. And they'd gone to a strategy, which they would keep for years, actually, of not wanting to run an operation against a target like this, but just to maybe put him out of business, even if it was temporary. Have him detained, have him questioned, have him expelled. Maybe that will at least throw Al-Qaeda off of its timing and stop or slow something down. So they ordered me to have him detained. Mm-hmm. And just trivia or whatever, authorities and law, U.S. law, the CIA can't ask another government to do anything it can't do itself. So CIA had come up with authority to detain him based on a 1986 finding, which still stands today, along with some other ones. But I said, I want to recruit this guy. I think he's recruitable. Over the time I've been watching this person, and I was watching him in literal ways and not just figurative, you kind of get to know somebody. You like surveillance teams get to know people, and I had a lot more than just surveillance. And I thought there's something just different about this guy. If he's going to conduct a terrorist operation, why is he here with his family? Why is he here in this place? Why is he doing some of this stuff? And why is he such a horrible business person? Because God love him or not, he's a horrible business person. He was in one money-making scheme after another that kind of went south. So I wanted permission to try to recruit him. They said, no, you got to detain him. Back and forth. They said, okay, you know what? You got 48 hours to get this all done. Get him detained, pitch him while he's under detainment, and then if he goes along with it, fab. If not, then try to get the local government to expel him. So that's a tall order to do. So my team and I put together this, it was a little bit of a Mission Impossible kind of stuff. We took over a building, we made it look like a jail. We actually got a jail in there, and we had people look like cops who were arresting him, and all this kind of fun stuff. And we did that. And then in a choreographed way, I had my senior team guy, who was a local of that government, posed being a member, which really was a local service, which didn't have the best reputation. They had a reputation of being thugs. My team wasn't, because they had to report to us and they had to be working under a different set of standards. And he kind of gave the setup for me. And I went into the room, because there was a jail cell, but a little conference room we brought him into. And it was a hot place. It was stifling hot. I was in my nice suit. I was playing the part. It was like in the middle of the night, 3 a.m, whatever it was. And I was in whatever alias, and I had my little file. And what you do, and you all who are special forces types and stuff, the worst thing an interrogator could ever do is bluff and be wrong. Mm-hmm. But when you've got stuff that you could stand behind, that will at least kind of get you some credentials, that's what you use. So I really knew his real name. I really knew where he was. I knew the names of his family members. And I was able to use that and basically say, right now you got a choice. I mean, if I let the local government have its way, they're just going to send you to this country, which will imprison, torture, and execute, which actually, they would have done, because they had done that with the other people he had left behind at his last country, and he knew that. I said, you don't do me any good dead. I said, the only value you have for me if you're willing to, work with me. And one of the challenges is Al-Qaeda trains people to say yes to that. They train people to feign cooperation, to minimize their role in the organization, but acknowledge it, to say, I got mixed up with the wrong people. I'll tell you whatever. One, to protect the real secrets, maybe get a chance to escape, or maybe set you up for ambush. So he did that, which meant, okay, that's a good start that he's saying, I'll work with you, but how do I really then vet him?
Right.
So, I had set up with my crew a little off the beaten path. Now, resort is too nice a term. It was kind of like a bungalow, but it was for tourists from that country. So it wasn't really highfalutin, but it was a good, safe place to be. And over the course of a week, over every day, I debriefed him. And he provided every day increasingly compromising material, which would have got him in a lot of trouble as well. And over time, we developed a relationship of tremendous trust. I mean, I sent him on the road. He did some amazing things. He disrupted any number of terrorist operations and helped put a lot of his terrorist friends, I'll put it lightly, out of business. And at the end of that time, I remember when I had to turn him over, it was a very emotional day. It was a lot of hugging, a lot of kissing. I kissed a lot of men in my day because it's very traditional for our men to, give kisses on the cheek and stuff like that. And as he's crying, he's saying, when I first met you, I was so afraid of you, but now that I know the real you, you're really a softie. Because that's what we had to be, to have that nature of trust where he was still putting his life on the line for me and actually working against his own group, in some cases, his own family. And it's not like he ever became a Jeffersonian Democrat. He never liked the United States.
Right.
He was happy when 9/11 happened. He thought we got our comeuppance. And he was candid about all that. So he didn't work for the CIA and me because a love of America or even for the money. He worked because of the trust. I did take care of him. I did take care of his family, but not just me, the institution did. And he served for actually quite a number of years.
And, you mentioned earlier that one of the things that the CIA does not do is coercion. And I think that is